Well, hello there, precious podcast listeners. This is Jennifer. This is podcast episode. It's Monday Fire 101. The one where Rachel and I had talked about what we were going to do a podcast episode on. And then Rachel's going to be really surprised when she actually sits down and listens to this and realizes that I completely went rogue. I'll do that one next week, Rachel, because I just got done with the boot camp that I've been doing all week. And I want to go in a different direction right now and just see if I can give you some tools to help some of you find some freedom in your business. So I did a boot camp this week on 5 different reasons why your business might not be making the type of money that it needs to make. And on day 5, I talked about, which was today, that you just might not have enough followers. Like the truth of the matter is, that if you have this many followers and you're making this much money, then if you, like, let's just say you had 1,000 followers and you're making, let's just say $1,000 a month. Well, math would challenge us to think, okay, well, if I had 2,000 followers, could I make $2,000 a month? I mean, maybe not exactly, but I think the potential is definitely there. Okay, so what if I had 10,000 followers? Then would I make $10,000 a month? Like, see where I'm going with this? And not that that math works exactly, but there is a correlation between the platform size that you have, which is a fancy word for the number of followers in your business, to dollars that are coming in. Now, do I know people who have way smaller platforms than me and making way more money than me? Absolutely. Do I know people who have bigger followings than me? And I'm guessing my revenue at my business is higher than theirs? Absolutely. So it's not foolproof. Okay. So I don't want you to get it wrong here. Send me a DM or anything else. But I just, what the whole point of today in the bootcamp was talking to the men and women that were in there about growing their social media platform. Now, what ended up being a real interesting topic of conversation and something that I ended up praying over the group about was the fact that when I asked questions such as, who here is really afraid to grow their social media following because it makes them feel really vulnerable, the overwhelming amount of people that agreed with that. And because I think that logically, most of us know that as a business owner in the year 2021, we have to be growing our social media, right? Like, and here's why. If you want to arm wrestle me on that fact and you're like, no, I have 10 followers and I don't need to grow anymore. Oh, okay, well, that's fine. But the truth of the matter is that if you are trying to sell something on the internet and you have people who are coming to your Facebook page and seeing that you don't have a ton of followers, you've got 100 people, you haven't posted in 2 months, you have no pinned post at the top or whatever. Psychologically, what happens to the person that's trying to determine if to like your page or if to buy from you is they instantly start thinking, well, okay, well, Jen hasn't posted on her page in a while. And gosh, she only has 200 followers. I'm really surprised. Like, she really kind of made herself out in that email I got from her to be, know what she's talking about in terms of business coaching, but she only has 200 followers. And so what that person ends up doing is talking themselves out of spending money with you a lot of times, because what the perception is that, and by the way, this is not right, but perception is key, okay? The perception is if somebody has a large platform, ooh, they must be successful. Wow, they must know what they're talking about. If their platform is that big, like, I can probably trust them. Now, is that logically the way it should be? 100% no. 100% no. But is that sometimes the way that our brain works? 100% yes. Let me just ask you, like, the last time you were shopping online, and if you didn't listen to my recent podcast, by the way, of like a terrible online shopping experience that I had, and you sell like clothing or earrings or anything like that online, if you have a store, please go listen to that podcast episode, because hopefully that will be really helpful to you. But think about the last time that you were like buying something online. If you were to see 2 people who sell exactly the same product, one never updates their Facebook, they have a very small following, their Instagram is very small, but the other one's got a thriving social media platform, thousands of followers, they're engaged with their people. Which one are you going to buy from? You're going to more than likely buy from the one with the larger amount of followers that's very engaged on their social media, because in your mind, something tells you that because they're doing those things, their business must be more legit. They're not just a little mom and pop shop that's possibly going to close down. They're going to keep your money from your credit card. You're never going to be able to get a return, et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting, the psychology of buying. Okay. It's also interesting, the psychology of selling. What's also interesting was the psychology of a lot of the people in my boot camp today. And this is the whole point of this podcast today, is the amount of people that feel like growing a business on social media feels super vulnerable. And it feels vulnerable for people in a number of ways. And I want to just help some of you if you can relate to this in any way. Okay. So sometimes people feel like, if I grow this thing, I'm going to feel like I am really exposed, that people, haters, trolls, they'll have more access to me. By the way, do you guys remember that one podcast episode? No, it was in my coaching group when I said haters and trolls, but it came out of my mouth as traders and holes. And now the women I coach are never going to let me live that down. So a lot of the women were nervous if they get more followers, and the couple hundred they have, or the 500 they have, or the 1,000 they currently have, that then they'll also get more people who are mean, cruel, horrible, leave bad reviews, etc. There were people who were feeling like, if I grow my social media, what are my friends and family going to think of me? Are they going to judge me? There were also people that were thinking, sorry about the cough. There were also people that were thinking, if I grow my social media, will I be able to keep up with it? What if it starts snowballing out of control and I no longer have control over the comments? I no longer have control over anything. And so it's the idea of growing your social media for a lot of people triggers some vulnerability things inside of them. And so here's what I wanted to talk about. What I was telling the group of women that I was encouraging and coaching and praying for today is that if you are someone who feels really vulnerable about the idea of growing your business, I want you to ask the Lord why. I want you to dig down deep and figure out why. Why does the idea of growth make me feel vulnerable? Is it that I'm afraid if my business grows, that I will have to leave a lot of the people that I'm currently with who are not growing with me? Is it that I'm afraid that if my business grows, I will turn into some kind of a jerk that people will hate? Is it that you're concerned if your platform grows and money starts coming in? Are you concerned that maybe the money is going to not make you into a very nice person and people are really going to judge you because suddenly you have cash that you didn't have before? Listen, guys, it's interesting what our brains will trick us with, okay? Is it that the idea of going on a Facebook Live feels very vulnerable? The idea of is it that the idea of you putting things on social media for people to criticize, for them to dissect, for them to wonder what your intention was? Listen, by the way, you cannot worry about what somebody else is going to read into your posts. However, one of the things that I was able to zero in on with a lot of my coaching clients today was sometimes we've got to figure out where that vulnerability factor is coming from. And if you are someone who has felt very left exposed, uncovered, alone, that often that will show up when we're trying to grow our business. Let me give you an example. If as a child, you perhaps felt as though some of the people in your world who were supposed to be protecting you did not. The people who were supposed to be taking care of you did not. If some of you felt as though you were the parent, even though you were the child, if you felt as though you were very uncovered a lot of the time and had no voice, the idea of then getting onto social media as a grown-up will often trigger in you a lot of those very vulnerable feelings of I'm uncovered, I'm exposed, etc. And my whole point is bringing this up today is because when we know better, we can do better. When we know how the enemy uses things against us and how he plants a seed of, if your social media grows, Jen, man, you may end up with everybody hating you. When the enemy, when he's able to do that, this is when I see a lot of people keeping a cover on their business and keeping it small, almost intentionally, even though they'll say to me, but I want it to make more money. And I'm like, well, then why aren't you posting on social media? Well, I don't like posting on social media. Well, why don't you like posting on social media? Because I'm afraid of people are going to say mean things. Well, why are you so afraid of that? Does that make sense? Like, I want you to look really deeply into the thing that is currently keeping your business small. And if it is that you have a social media problem, that you don't post regularly, that you don't know what to post, that posting scares you, that you look at Facebook and you see an absolute dumpster fire a lot of times on other people's pages and you're like, heck no, I won't go. And so you back off. I want you to dig deep on what is the actual root of that? Because the Bible talks a lot about getting to the root of things. We serve a God who's not a topical doctor. He doesn't band-aid things. He gets to the root of infection. Now, you may be saying to yourself, okay, Jen, me not wanting to post on Instagram, that's not really an infection. Okay, well, I may disagree to a certain level. Because what if your family desperately needs, I'm speaking to you, girlfriends, your business to make some money on Instagram this year? You're wanting to transfer your kids over to private school. You're wanting to be able for your husband to not have to work 2 jobs. You're wanting to be able to take a vacation for the first time in years because we will be flying again in 2021 to the glory of God. Like, what if your family is dependent upon you? What if you have parents that need for you to make money so you can help them with some of their medical expenses? Like, what if? And if you're not making money or enough money in your business, and the reason is because your social media following is small or it's not consistent, I want you to figure out why. And I want you to figure out why so that you can get to the root of that and expose the lie. If your social media grows, will you actually turn into a jerk? Probably not. If you actually begin to 10 times your revenue in your business, will you become a complete jerk? Well, I love that a coach of mine told me once, Jen, if you were not a jerk before you had money, you're probably not going to be a jerk after money either. Money magnifies. You've heard me talk a lot on social media, on my Instagram stories in the last few weeks about money. Money just magnifies what's already there. This is why so many people struggle with it. And so I know I did a complete pivot, Rachel, on the topic of this podcast, but since it was fresh in my mind and I was really feeling compassion towards the people who are struggling with saying, on one hand, I want to grow, but on the other hand, they're not joining any coaching groups. They don't have a business coach. They're not posting regularly. They're not posting their things for sale. They get really weird about feeling, like a slimy salesman whenever they do post their cute earrings. They're worried that they're going to bother people. So they're essentially they're taught, like the Bible says, you can't talk out of the both sides of your mouth like that, right? Like, I want to grow, but also I'm doing none of the things required to grow. We need to figure out why. And so I spent the morning unpacking that with a lot of my coaching clients. And I want you to spend some time today, if that's you, with unpacking that with the Lord. Lord, why do I self-sabotage? Why do I listen to Jen? And I know some of the ways that I can grow my business are through social media. I hear her say that and I believe it to be true, but why do I refuse to do that? Why does it worry me? Why do I get nervous about that? What is it that is actually the lie that was planted at some point that says, if I get bigger, things may go wrong? And I don't know who this podcast is for today, but you do. And God cares about you enough that he had me just do a complete, it's not 360. What is it, family? It's 180 on my topic for today, just to get this word into your ear. Because he doesn't want you to believe the lie any longer. You are not vulnerable. You are not exposed. Did you know that the Bible literally says that God goes both before us and he's also your rear guard? See, you're never actually exposed. You have him going before you, and you also have him behind you. You are hemmed in. That's a fancy word for saying sandwiched in between good and good. Sandwiched in between protection and protection. So if growing your social media is terrifying to you, dig deep. Figure out why, friends, because I promise you, even if you feel like social media is an absolute dumpster fire, which in a lot of ways it is, okay? It's still the number one best way to grow your business. It's still the easiest way to grow your business without any cost. It's still where everybody is. And if God calls us to be salt and light, that means we have to go where people are actually able to taste and see that he is good, right? And so where do we go to show God's goodness? We go where the people are. And where the people are, they're on social media, friends. They are on their phones 24/7. So Hope that blesses somebody today. I hope that speaks to someone's heart. If this was a podcast for you, will you share it on your Instagram stories and tag me and let me know? Because that I love knowing who God is super intentional about getting a word to sometimes on my podcast. So if that was for you, let me know. I am so rooting for you, and just pray a blessing over you and your business and over your following and over the platform that God has given you. I pray that you would steward it well, that any lie of the enemy that has been allowed to take root in your heart or your soul about what growth could mean and how things could go get wrong, I pray that the Lord would pull that lie out and it would be replaced with God's truth over your life and over your business in Jesus' name. Amen.